Good evening, beautiful souls. Life has a way of teaching people lessons, and sometimes the most unforgettable lesson is realizing the value of someone after they're gone. But let's talk about you today, the one who gave, the one who loved fiercely, the one who stayed even when you weren't appreciated the way you deserved. You see, when someone takes you for granted, they believe you'll always be there. But when you finally choose yourself, when you decide that your worth isn't up for negotiation, that's when they start to regret. And trust me, regret has a way of showing itself. Regret is a strange thing. It doesn't knock on the door when everything is fine. It doesn't whisper warnings when someone is taking you for granted. No, regret comes later, when the damage is done, when the silence becomes deafening, and when the absence of someone they never truly appreciated suddenly feels unbearable. People often assume that love, kindness, and patience will always be there. They mistake consistency for permanence, believing that just because someone has always been there, they always will be. They grow comfortable, they stop putting in effort, they assume you'll never leave because in their mind you've already proven your loyalty. And that is where the biggest mistake happens, not realizing that even the strongest, most loving hearts can get tired. At first, they don't notice the small shifts. The way your voice loses its warmth when you speak to them, the way your messages become shorter, the way you stop initiating plans. They don't notice that your eyes, once filled with hope, now carry a quiet sadness. They don't realize that with every act of neglect, every broken promise, and every moment of indifference, they are slowly pushing you away. And then one day you finally decide that enough is enough. That's when regret begins. Regret doesn't come in loud outbursts or immediate realization. It creeps in slowly, starting with memories. Suddenly they remember the way you used to smile at them, the way you always showed up even when they didn't ask, the way you supported them when they were at their lowest. They recall the small things you did, the thoughtful texts, the little surprises, the warmth of your presence, and it hits them. They had something rare, something real, and they let it slip through their fingers. At first, they might not admit it. Pride keeps them from acknowledging their mistake. They tell themselves they were just busy, that they didn't do anything that wrong, that you're probably overreacting. But deep down, they feel it. The void that your absence has created, the good morning texts that no longer come, the warmth that used to fill their life now replaced by cold silence. The reassurance that you were always there, now nothing but a memory. That's the moment regret fully sets in. They begin to wonder if they can turn things around, if they can fix what they broke. Maybe they reach out with a message, hoping you'll respond the way you used to. Maybe they show up unexpectedly, hoping to see that look in your eyes again, the look that told them they mattered. But the problem is, regret doesn't rewind time. Once a person has been pushed too far, once they've realized their own worth, they don't go back to being someone's second thought. They finally see what they lost, but by then it's no longer theirs to have. And that is the weight of regret. Knowing that they had something special and knowing that they were the ones who let it go. They start reminiscing about the good times you shared, but not when it mattered, not when you were there, giving your love freely, showing up every time they needed you, or offering your warmth without hesitation. They start remembering only when the silence replaces your laughter, when your absence feels heavier than they ever expected, and when they realize that what they had wasn't just another fleeting moment, it was something real, something meaningful, something they should have cherished. At first, it starts subtly. A random memory crosses their mind. The way you used to smile at them, the way your eyes lit up when you talked about your dreams, the way you laughed at their jokes, even the ones that weren't funny. Maybe they hear a song on the radio and suddenly they're taken back to a moment when you were sitting next to them, singing along, carefree and happy. They might brush it off at first, thinking it's just nostalgia, just a fleeting thought. But then it happens again and again, until it's no longer just a passing memory, but a feeling they can't shake off. They start recalling the times when they didn't have to think twice before calling you, knowing you'd answer, the moments when they were struggling and without even asking you were there, reassuring them, supporting them, reminding them they weren't alone. They remember the small things, the inside jokes, the way you always knew exactly what to say when they were upset, the little ways you made them feel special even when they didn't deserve it. And that's when it hits them. Those weren't just ordinary moments. They were moments of love, of effort, of someone choosing them again and again. They begin to realize that what they once saw as routine was in fact a rare kind of devotion. The way you always checked in on them, even when they didn't do the same. The way you noticed the little details about them, their favorite coffee order, the way their voice changed when they were tired, the things that made them anxious or excited. You paid attention in ways they never truly appreciated until now. And as the memories flood in, so does the regret. Because they also start remembering the times they didn't appreciate you the way they should have. The times they brushed off your feelings, thinking you'd always understand. The times they didn't reciprocate the same energy, assuming you'd always be there. The times you tried to communicate, to express your hurt, and they didn't listen because they never thought they'd lose you. They wonder if you remember those good times too, if you ever think about the way things used to be, if you still hold on to those moments the way they do now. But deep down, they fear the truth. You've moved on. You've grown past the place where those memories hold you back, because while they are reminiscing about what was, you have stepped into what is and what will be. That's the irony of regret. By the time they finally see the beauty in what they had, you've already learned to live without them. They are left with memories that once brought joy but now serve as a reminder of everything they lost. And no matter how much they reminisce, no matter how much they wish they could go back, the past is no longer a place they can return to. They try to make things right, but it's too late. Not because they suddenly became a different person, not because they've truly understood the depth of what they lost, but because they now feel the emptiness that your absence has left behind. It's only when they realize that you've stopped waiting, that you've stopped hoping, that they begin to scramble, desperate to undo what's already been done. At first, it's subtle, a message out of nowhere, something casual, something that doesn't immediately admit fault but is laced with an underlying regret. Hey, just thinking about you, hope you're doing okay. They test the waters, hoping for an opening, a sign that you will let them back in as easily as before. They tell themselves that if they can just remind you of the connection you once had, maybe you'll forget the way they made you feel invisible, the way they neglected what you gave so freely. Then, when they see that you don't respond the way they expected, or worse, that you don't respond at all, they start to panic. They start making real efforts, the ones they should have made when you were still giving them your time, your love, your patience. Apologies start coming, not always with words, but with actions, as if suddenly remembering your worth. They might try to recreate the moments they once dismissed, showing up with gifts, sending long messages explaining how they see things clearly now, trying to prove that they have changed. They might even say all the things you once longed to hear. I should have been better. I should have listened. I didn't realize how much you meant to me. And maybe for a brief moment you feel the weight of those words, because once, a long time ago, you wanted nothing more than for them to recognize your worth, to acknowledge the love you gave without hesitation. But now it's different. Now you've healed in places they didn't think you would. You no longer crave the validation that their regret brings because you've found it within yourself. And that's what makes it too late. It's not about punishing them or seeking revenge. It's about the simple, undeniable truth that love, once taken for granted for too long, doesn't wait forever. You tried. You gave chances. You forgave, even when they didn't deserve it. But at some point, something inside you shifted, and you realized that waiting for someone to appreciate you was no longer a burden you wanted to carry. Now they are left with the weight of their own choices, realizing that love isn't a game where you can press rewind when you finally decide you want to play differently. They are left looking at a door they assumed would always be open, only to find that it has quietly, firmly, and permanently closed. They watch you grow and succeed from a distance, and it unsettles them in a way they never expected. When you walked away, they may have thought it was temporary, that you just needed time, that eventually things would go back to how they were. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, they began to see something they weren't prepared for, you thriving without them. At first, they might have ignored it, convincing themselves that you were just putting on a show, that your happiness was a mask, that deep down you still missed them. But then they start noticing the changes. Your energy shifts, your confidence grows, and the way you carry yourself no longer carries the weight of what they put you through. You're no longer the person who begged for attention, who waited for appreciation, who settled for being taken for granted. You've become someone stronger, someone who has stepped into their own power, and that realization stings them more than they'd like to admit. They start seeing your success in ways they can't ignore. Maybe it's through mutual friends who mention how well you're doing. Maybe it's through social media, where your life no longer revolves around the past, but is instead filled with new adventures, new accomplishments, and a glow they never saw when you were with them. They scroll through your pictures, watching from behind a screen as you flourish, as you laugh, as you embrace the world in a way that proves you were never dependent on them. You were just temporarily held back. And the hardest part for them? Seeing you reach milestones they never thought you would without them. Maybe you finally pursued that dream they once dismissed. Maybe you found success in a career they never fully supported. Maybe you are surrounded by new people who uplift you in ways they never did. Every achievement, every smile, every step forward is a silent reminder that they weren't as essential to your happiness as they once believed. They might try to downplay it, telling themselves that it's just a phase, that you'll eventually remember what you had and come back, but deep down they know the truth. The version of you they knew, the one who waited, who compromised too much, who accepted less than they deserved, that version no longer exists. And as much as they want to reach out, to find a way back into your life, they realize they no longer know how. They don't know how to approach someone who no longer needs them, someone who has built a life that doesn't include them, someone who has turned their pain into strength. That's the thing about growth. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for someone else to catch up. It happens when a person chooses themselves, when they decide that their future is worth more than their past, when they understand that being valued starts with valuing themselves. And so they watch from the sidelines, unable to say anything, unable to change the course of things, left with nothing but the regret of knowing they had a front row seat to your life, but never truly appreciated it until they were forced to watch from a distance. They search for you in others, but can't replace you. At first, they don't even realize they're doing it. They convince themselves that moving on will be easy, that they will find someone else to fill the space you once occupied. They tell themselves that what they had with you wasn't that rare, that love is just a cycle, that they can start over with someone new and feel the same way they once did. But reality doesn't work like that. At first, they seek comfort in distractions. Maybe they jump into another relationship, thinking that all they need is a fresh start. Maybe they go on dates, hoping that if they spend enough time with someone new, the echoes of you will fade away. For a little while, they convince themselves it's working. They laugh at new jokes, share new experiences, and try to build something familiar with someone unfamiliar. But then, in the quiet moments, the spaces between conversation, the pauses between laughter, they feel it. The absence of something deeper, the emptiness of connection that doesn't compare, the realization that no matter how much they try to replace you, they can't. It starts with the little things, the way they subconsciously search for your traits in someone else, the way they notice the differences and feel a pang of disappointment when the new person doesn't respond like you would, doesn't understand them like you did, doesn't bring the same warmth, the same energy, the same depth. They find themselves frustrated, comparing without meaning to, longing for something they no longer have. They realize that what you gave wasn't ordinary, that the way you loved, the way you cared, the way you listened, those things weren't just part of any relationship, they were part of you. They try to recreate moments, maybe even taking someone new to the places you once went together, hoping to capture the same magic. But instead of feeling comfort, they feel loss, because those moments weren't special because of the place or the situation. They were special because you were there. And now, without you, they feel hollow, like they're chasing a ghost of something they can never get back. They might not admit it out loud, but deep down they know. They know they had something real, something that can't be easily found again. They start remembering all the times they took you for granted, all the ways they assumed you would always be there, all the times they failed to appreciate what they had. And now they see the truth. They weren't just searching for anyone, they were searching for you, but by the time they come to terms with it, it's too late. Because you aren't waiting, you aren't hoping for them to realize your worth. You've already moved on, not to someone else, but to a version of yourself that doesn't need their validation, their regrets, or their half-hearted attempts to replace what they lost. And so they keep searching for something they will never find again, because what you gave was one of a kind. And now they have to live with the knowledge that they let it slip away. Their regret is not your responsibility. Your growth is. It may take time to fully accept this, but eventually you will realize that their guilt, their longing, their sleepless nights spent thinking about what they lost, none of it is yours to carry. They made their choices and you made yours. The difference is your choices led to growth, to self-discovery, to a version of yourself that refuses to shrink back into the person who once tolerated being unappreciated. There was a time when you might have felt guilty for their regret, for their pain, when they reached out, when they tried to make things right, when they admitted their mistakes. A part of you might have felt the familiar tug of empathy, the instinct to comfort them the way you always did. But then you remembered how you felt when you needed that same understanding, that same acknowledgement, and they weren't there to give it. You remembered the nights you questioned your worth, the moments when you felt invisible, the times you convinced yourself to be okay with less than you deserved. And in that remembering, you understood something powerful. Their regret is not a reason for you to turn back. Regret is something they have to sit with. It is the weight of their own actions, the direct consequence of taking something valuable for granted. If they had truly cherished you, if they had realized your worth when it mattered, they wouldn't be standing on the outside now, watching your life unfold without them. But that's not your burden to fix. You are not responsible for softening the lesson they were meant to learn. You are not obligated to ease their pain just because you once cared for them. Caring for someone does not mean you owe them a second chance, especially when they didn't value the first one. What you owe yourself, however, is continued growth. The journey you have been on, the one of rediscovering yourself, of learning to stand tall in your own worth, of embracing a life that isn't built around waiting for someone else's recognition. That is what matters now. You have fought too hard to reclaim your happiness to let their regret pull you back into a place you outgrew. And as you continue to evolve, as you step further into the person you were always meant to be, you will see things even more clearly. You will see that their regret is not about you, it's about them. It's about their inability to appreciate something good when they had it. It's about their realization that what they lost was irreplaceable. It's about their struggle to accept that life does not pause while they decide to finally show up. And as you continue to evolve, as you step further into the person you were always meant to be, you will see things even more clearly. You will see that their regret is not about you, it's about them. It's about their inability to appreciate something good when they had it. It's about their realization that what they lost was irreplaceable. It's about their struggle to accept that life does not pause while they decide to finally show up. But you have moved forward. You have embraced your worth. You have turned your pain into power, your heartbreak into wisdom, your loss into strength. And that is something they will have to live with for the rest of their lives. Their regret belongs to them. Your growth belongs to you. And that is the only thing that truly matters now.